Hey everyone, this is Brian Holmes with the Strategic Living Podcast and BrianHolmes.com. You're listening to my great friend Stephanie O'Brien, and you are about to be moved by purpose.
Having a clear sense of direction, knowing where I'm headed. I wanted to dream, and I wanted to have goals. I'm a Christ follower, so I wanted to trust in a higher power. And I wanted to have meaning and purpose in my life. And at the end of the day, I want my girls to say, hey, my dad was a wise man.
Are you longing to know what your purpose is? Are you on the wrong career path? Do you feel like there must be more to life? Don't worry, there's hope. It's time to be moved by purpose. Now your host, Stephanie O'Brien.
Welcome to the show, Aaron. I am so honored and excited to have you on today.
Thanks, Stephanie. I appreciate it.
So the first question I ask every guest on the show is to get a good understanding of your work history, a background of what you have done for work and what has led you to start A View from the Top.
Sure, absolutely. I've got a pretty extensive background. I won't take you too far back, but I do have to give you a little backstory so you'll understand kind of where I'm coming from. I started really early at 13 years old working in a local pawn shop in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm a native Nashvilleian. And I fell in love with that business. At 15, I decided I wanted to be in that business. I wanted to make a career out of it. So I went to summer school, night school, was able to graduate early, met a couple of guys that had a lot of money because my family didn't have any. We were broke. We didn't have any money. So I went out to a couple of guys that had been buying things from me over the course of the years and made them a proposal. And at 18 years old, we formed a partnership and we opened our first store. It really, really did well. And we had a 10-year loan of $150,000. And in the 70s, that was a lot of money, especially for an 18-year-old. And we paid it off in 36 months. That's how well the business did. So I was incredibly blessed. And then we saved the money and we bought our second store when I was 21. And then we did really good about the same way with that store. And then at 25, I opened my third store. At 26, my fourth store. And then a company in Fort Worth, Texas called Cash America. They were a Fortune 500 company. They came to me and made an offer I couldn't refuse. So, Stephanie, for all practical purposes, at 27, I was done. And then some really unique things happened in my life. We went to Florida. We were going to spend the summer. And I found out that laying around the beach and playing golf every day wasn't for me. And so I lasted about, 18 months or so, and I gained 50 pounds and became extremely depressed because I had no purpose. My wife told me one day, she said, man, you got to do something. You got to get a job or open a new business or something. We had 2 little girls at the time. And so I went back to the shop that I started with and bought half of it. We spent the next 10 years really building that business to about 4 times the size it was. And then, Stephanie, I was on my way to the office August 1st, 2001, and I had a horrific automobile accident. I hit a pedestrian that was crossing the street, and unfortunately he didn't make it. And it really, really rocked my world, needless to say. I took some time off, went back to my partner and told him that I was done. I said, I'm through chasing money. I'm chasing stores. I want more homes, bigger cars, finer things. And I'm like, there's got to be more to life than just these tangible possessions. And so I took the next 5 years off, took a break. We built a new house. We traveled extensively, Robin and I did, and kind of regrouped. Came back, started a construction company, and we grew it to number 1 3 consecutive years in Middle Tennessee. Did that for about 8 years, and then I retired for the third and final time. My wife said, you've retired more than the law allows. And I retired. So I got a couple of buddies that I was in a mastermind group with for over a dozen years, Dave Ramsey and Dan Miller and Ken Abraham, some of those guys you may or may not be familiar with, and they encouraged me to coach. So now I'm a life and business coach, and I own View from the Top. So there's 36 years, Stephanie, in about 4 minutes.
But it's such a fascinating story and fascinating journey, especially since you saw success at such a young age. And a lot of my listeners are in that age range, 25 to about 35. And I noticed that a lot of people are motivated. They want the success and the achievement. They want the nice things and the material possessions and the finances. And there's really nothing wrong with those. At the same time, they want meaning and purpose. And it seems as if, they think they can only have one, that they can't have both.
People always say, what would you tell your younger self? And I would tell my younger self, it is absolutely possible to have success and significance in our lives. And I thought that we had to choose, right? It was like, hey, I can go for it, and later, I'll live that life of significance. Well, later may not come, and that's kind of what the wreck brought to my attention. It was kind of like, hey, that could have been me crossing the road, right? And then it would have all been over, and then I would have lived a life that was pretty selfish, just thinking about myself and not thinking about others. And so now I teach people on a daily basis, hey, I want you to have the nice house. I want you to take the nice trips. There's nothing like being able to take nice trips, buy things for your family, provide an education for your children, have a nice home. Those things are awesome. And a lot of times people with money will say, money doesn't mean anything. And I want to say, you liar, it does mean something. It is important. And if somebody tells you that, run from them because they're lying to you. But what I don't want you to do is to make it the most important thing. That's where we get tripped up.
And there's also a common belief that in order for you to make an impact and make a difference in the world and to have significance, that you're going to have to live really broke or be barely scraping by, but you're doing something that is, I guess they say, rewarding. Or
let's break that down for a second. Let's talk about that for a minute. People ask me all the time, what does that mean? What does it mean to be successful? What does it mean to be significant? And I think we all have to determine that for ourselves. I don't think I've got the answer for Stephanie or for me or for Billy that's a blanket, right? I mean, we each define success and significant differently. For me, I really wanted the freedom and stability that money offered. I wanted to be able to manage my own time. I wanted to be able to say, today I would like to do this. Tomorrow I'm going to choose to do that. So that was important for me. I considered that successful. But some of the other things for me that I later found was very important was having an engaging family and meaningful relationships. And I know, Stephanie, for you, in your business now, you know how vital it is to have meaningful relationships to build your business and the things that you do. But it's not just your business, it's your family. Whether it be your husband or boyfriend or whoever, there's an engaging relationship that you want to participate in there. You don't want it to be all about business. And then for me, some of the things in success was like having a clear conscience, to be sure that I took care of my clients well, that I told the truth, that I was a man of character, that I was honorable. And then I told you earlier, I gained 50 pounds, by being off work and not having anything to do. And I realized that if I'm going to make this long term, I got to take care of myself. So success for me was getting back into shape. Recently, you and I both probably need to lose a little bit, and I've lost 43 pounds since November.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah, the other day, Robin and I have been married now 35 years, and I said, it's funny because I weigh the same today as I did when we got married when I was 19. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool for a guy 54 years old. But then a couple of the other things for success for me was having a clear sense of direction, knowing where I'm headed. I wanted to dream, and I wanted to have goals. I'm a Christ follower, so I wanted to trust in a higher power. And I wanted to have meaning and purpose in my life. And at the end of the day, I want my girls to say, hey, my dad was a wise man. So that's kind of how I break down success. Stephanie, what would you classify success like for you?
Oh, I love that. I definitely love your definition. It very much resonates with mine. I think having balance, just an overall well-balanced life, is key. I see a lot of people and I've had this too, where I went so extreme in one area that I got completely off balance in others. Although, let's say, for example, fitness, okay, let's focus so much on fitness that, everything else falls apart, or that I'm spending all my time counting calories or exercising that, I'm not getting anything else done. And I see that a lot, that people operate in extremes. And so for me, learning the balance was really important. And then character and integrity is a big deal. Is a big deal for me. And because I see a lot of people that do make it to the top, or from the outside, they look like they have everything, high status positions, lots of toys and expensive things, but they got there by cutting corners and not having the highest integrity with how they operated business. And that
Right.
not having a clear conscience is like, that's one thing. I'd rather have the clear conscience.
No money.
Right. And there's a proverb, I wish I can recall it, where it was like, a good reputation is better than gaining gold.
Right.
So I think how you make people feel and the way that you lead and what you do in front of people and not in front of people is really important. Because at the end of the day, I want to sleep well.
Well, it's everything. If you get things ill-gotten gain, doesn't last long, but your reputation, no one can take that away. So they can take your money away, but no one can take that. And so it's important how we live our lives. And we go on into the significant side of things, and I think about what I can do individually. A lot of people say, well, if I had money like you do, I would do those things as well. And I challenge people on that thought process, and I say, really money magnifies what's already there. It doesn't change your heart. And so if you're not doing things on a level that you can afford now, you certainly wouldn't do it at a higher level. And so for me, meeting the needs of others and taking care of them and even helping others when they can't repay you, then you've really done something, because a lot of the times in business and personally, we'll do things with the wrong motive. It'll be like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and send this thank you note, or I'm going to make this phone call because I know that that person can help me later with this project or that project. And so for me, I look for opportunities to help people that there's no way that they can repay me. And so we're all busy, right, Stephanie? We think that we don't have the time. For me, taking time out and aiding other people when it's not convenient then is edifying people. It's lifting them up. It's encouraging them. It's saying, hey, you're really important. I'm busy, and I am busy. I've got a lot of stuff going on. But when I take the time to help others when it's not convenient, it really sends a clear message to them that I'm interested in them. One of the things that I've done in all my businesses, people say, give me an action tip. Give me something that I can do that'll help me be significant and successful. And for me, it was providing above and beyond the expected or the minimal requirement. It was like under promise and over perform in everything you do, whether it be service or if you're selling a widget, give them extra, give them more, get it there faster, follow up. We were in the construction business for about 8 years. We built really high-end homes, and your warranty that the law requires that we do. Instead of waiting for the customer to call me to come and fix whatever was wrong at the end of the year, we would call them first. And they would be like, are you serious? I mean, like, you're calling me? And I said, yeah. I mean, we built you a really expensive home, and I'm sure there's things that we need to repair. Stephanie, do you know how much we had to work to get houses once we took that approach? Not very much, because they would tell all their friends, right? And then their friends would go, listen, if this guy's going to take the initiative to call me when there's something wrong with my house and come fix it, I know we're going to get a quality product. Well, see, you can implement that in any service industry, in any product that you're selling. And I'm thinking, if you want to be significant for others, give above and beyond the expected amount or the minimal requirement. So those are just a couple of things for me that are significant, and I just think that we all can do those things.
Yes, and I love that example. It's very practical, easy to understand. But for those that might struggle with this, and I don't know if you've encountered people that seem to be battling, that operate in fear or have like a lack mentality. What you just described makes so much sense. But for people that kind of struggle with lack, like, oh, I can't afford to do that, or I have limited resources or limited time, or they give all these reasons as to why. And you've touched on that about how you don't have the resources.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Talk about people. See, here's the thing. People think that the pie is only so big, and that is nothing further from the truth. Daniel Lapin's got a great book out called Thou Shalt Prosper. And it's a wonderful book. He's actually been to my mastermind group a few times, and we've had dinner together, and we've gotten to talk about these things. But he talks at great length about giving out of your abundance, right? As you pour the glass full and it overflows, and then you give back. And what's funny is you talk about operating out of fear. And I've got a little saying I say, fear missing an opportunity more than you fear failure. What I used to tell my daughters when they were growing up, they'd say, Dad, if I do that, it may not work. And I said, well, that's okay. You'll just know one more way that it won't work, and we won't have to repeat that process until we become successful. I said, for me, failure is in not trying, not in not succeeding. I would hate to lay in the bed at night and think, would my idea, I had rather do it and it not work and know as to sit there and never know. And so I just suggest that all your listeners fear missing the opportunity more than they fear failure.
That's great. I'm writing this down for all of the tweetable quotes that you're giving. These are really good. Yeah, I definitely see that people can get tripped up. Now, you've mentioned another thing that can hold people up too is a disappointment or discouragement where they tried, they gave it their all, they did the best that they could, and it didn't work. And they might run into that more than once. And I know failure is part of the path to success. And, you know, for those that are kind of getting worn out for trying so many things.
Let me tell you some things that I do and have done coming up on 40 years now, almost 4 decades of business. And what I have found out, as I pointed out earlier, for me, this is the process I go through. Not that it'll necessarily work for you, but I'll just tell you my process. I told you earlier that I was a Christ follower. I trust in Supreme Being. I trust God because I'm a Christian. So first of all, I pray. The second thing I do is read Scripture. I read the Bible because I know that the answers to our needs, wants, and desires are in the Scripture. So that's the second thing I do. The third thing I do is I have trusted advisors. Now here's where, if you don't agree with the first two, we all can agree on this. There is counsel, there's wise counsel in the multitudes. If you go individually to people and give the same scenario, and you come up with a general consensus. And these people are credible, honorable, wise. They've been down the trail before. Probably that's where it's going to head, right? So recently there was a business venture I was going to do, and my wife and I thought it was a great thing. She said, why don't you go to your advisors and see what they think? So I took them to lunch, had coffee, went to dinner individually, 12 different guys. 11 of the 12 guys told me not to do it. And I'm like, are you serious? I went back to Robin and I said, 11 of the 12 guys said not to do it. And here's what they said, and here's why. They each gave different reasons that I never thought of. See, it's so easy to, from within yourself, to rationalize and convince yourself that your idea is great. It's like when I sing in the shower, it is really good. But when I get out, Robin says, no, this is bad, and you got to stop immediately. Well, that's what these trusted advisors do. See, people that know you for a long period of time, they know your strengths, they know your weaknesses, and they can see things that maybe you couldn't. And I would just suggest that do that with everything. I've always been a person to seek a lot of counsel. Do your due diligence. Most people will get an idea, and here's what they'll do. They won't tell anybody, because if it fails, then they have explanations to give. But I say just the opposite. I say I'd rather look silly in front of 12 people than the world. And so I'll get those trusted advisors and say, tell me the truth. If you see me this way, if you see me that way, this is what I intend to do. Here's my plan. Here's what I would like to do. What are your thoughts? And so that has saved me so many times, because in my own mind, I think I'm a bomb scientist. You know, I can do it. But these guys really help. So that's the process by which I work through.
I love it. And I follow the same thing. I'm also a Christian, and I definitely believe in the power of prayer, reading scriptures, and having trusted advisors. And I say that a lot in my content. The common question that I get when it comes to the trusted advisors is, how do I find them, or where are they, or how do I know who will be a good person to connect with? And how do I know who to avoid with seeking counsel?
Okay, well, let's go through that. So in 1995, Dave Ramsey started this radio show here in Nashville, and he came to me and offered me to be an advertiser on the show, and I started laughing. I said, no way, man, I don't even know you, never heard of you. You're starting this new thing, and no way, no thank you. He said, well, I'm going to give you advertising to try me. So I said, well, I can't lose on that deal. So he gave me advertising, and in 3 days, I signed an annual contract. And Dave has become one of my best friends. I've been on his show now for 20 years as an advertiser, either a business I've owned or have owned, and it is remarkable what he's done. Well, as a result of that, back years ago, he said, why don't you join my personal mastermind group? I'd never even heard of a mastermind group. I didn't even know what a mastermind group was, 20-something years ago. And so I went, and there was 10 guys in there that were phenomenal. Now, a lot of these guys, like Dan Miller was in there, and Ken Abraham. Ken Abraham's got over 100 books in print now. He's a 10 times New York Times #1 selling author. But at the time, he wasn't. See, a lot of people say, yeah, if I could be in there with Dave and Ken and Dan, I would too. But the point is they weren't then. Right.
Not then.
And so we had guys that were getting their business off the ground. We were just starting, really going, and we worked together. And so we were able to empower and encourage each other from the very onset. And that took time. And I drove, it's 40 miles to Dave's office from my house. And I drove an 80-mile round trip for 12 years, 10 or 12 years. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't miss it for anything. I was committed. But it took a couple of years to get to a level that we trusted each other implicitly, where we didn't have to say, don't say anything about this, don't tell anybody. It was just understood that there was confidentiality. So if you think it's a quick fix, it's not. It takes time. And there's some guys that come and went, right? There were some guys that didn't fit the chemistry of the group, and so they didn't last long. But the remainder of the guys lasted a decade. And we're still friends. We still have lunch together, and we still see each other. And it takes time. I'm a real long-term thinker. I don't think I'm going to fix this problem in 6 months or a year. I'm thinking long-term. And to be highly successful, that's the mindset you take. You've got to take a long-term approach at everything you do. You get the right people, and there's all kind of places to get people. I'm sitting at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center now in the Google Hub, one of 7 in the country now. And you meet people there that you can build a relationship with slowly. Form your own mastermind group. Get an accountability group. At your church, business people that you are familiar with. Just get the guys together and say, I'm thinking about doing this. Join a group. I'm the facilitator of 3 groups that I lead in every week, and I'm the personal facilitator. It's called Iron Sharpens Iron. I'm just saying there's a number of ways, but don't wait on people to contact you. Be proactive and not reactive in starting your group.
Should the mastermind groups be focused on business? Because there's all,
Absolutely. No. That's where you get, see, that's what happens. These people get on a quest to be successful. And what they end up doing is making a lot of money, and they come home one day to a group of strangers. They don't know their wife. They don't know their husband. They don't know their children. And I teach guys that the office doesn't have a memory, but your family does. And I say, if you're going to err at work and be with your family, because you only have one opportunity with that family. And so I would just encourage you strongly. Yeah, I can teach you to make money. It's not that hard to make money. It's really not that hard. But what is hard is being the husband or the wife or the dad that God called you to be. That takes a lot more work, but is much more gratifying. It's a lot more enriching. You're changing generations to come as a result of it. I don't want you to make a lot of money and not know your family. So we spend about 50% of the time talking about business and about 50% of the time talking about family.
That's good to know, because there's a lot of mastermind groups out there that I see. Someone that wants to join a mastermind group and get a group of trusted advisors and to really just get to know each other and do life together and build that long-term relationship and grow in success together. What kind of mastermind group should they look for? Maybe are there warning signs about one that might not be the best? Because you mentioned long term. I know that there's some that don't always last for years. There's paid, there's free. There's a big variety out there.
Well, what I would suggest is that you just experiment with a group in your local area. Now the internet has allowed us to meet virtually, and I have people all over the planet that are participating in internet-based accountability groups, mastermind groups, where in 1 hour you can come on. You can do it from the privacy of your home, like on Zoom or Skype, whatever tool that you want to use in order to host these events. We have rooms that we can get up to 100 people in, but I limit the groups to 10. And so you get airtime when there's only 10 of you. You know, you get more than that.
Yep.
It's hard. You're fighting for time. And you can do it from the privacy of your office or your home. So virtually is awesome. Normally, for the accountability part, I find that free groups don't really last because you have no skin in the game. And if you miss, but if you've got a pain point, like, I'm going to go because I'm paying for this, and right? And so people will show up. I remember years ago, I was doing financial counseling at our church, and of course I've taken everything Dave's ever offered. And he said, man, do not do this for free. And I said, Dave, I'm not going to charge people at my church for this. He said, give the money back to the church. I don't care what you do with the money. But if they do it free, half the time the people won't show up. So I went on my merry way and I did it for free. 75% of the people didn't show up for the counseling. And I never told him he was right, so don't anybody else tell him either. But it's true. If there's no skin in the game, you're not going to show up. And so our groups are at a price point to where there's great value, but it holds you accountable for being there. So I think needs to be diversity. A lot of people say, well, I want to get a bunch of people like me. Well, you get 10 people and they're all like you don't need 9 of them.
Exactly.
You want people with the same objective, right? We want to grow forward. We want to be concerned about our family as well as business. You want to have commonality in regards to what you're trying to accomplish, but you don't want to have everybody the same. You want diversity because you can see things through a different lens.
I agree with the skin in the game, and that does remind me, in the beginning when people are trying to really get their business off the ground, there's mixed advice over being generous and giving a lot away for free and knowing when to charge your services.
People only value what they pay for.
I agree. I've seen that time and time again. And I've had people like career transition groups reach out to me and say, can you be on our panel of career coaches, but you'd have to do this pro bono. And I've said there needs to be some form of investment involved. If they really need the help where they can volunteer, they can do something. It could be a lower payment, but like something has to get involved. And it's been declined. And I've seen the other coaches that agreed to do pro bono, they show up, they prepare, they come in to give 100%, and the client never shows up, they never do the work, and they get burned out.
See, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I think we should do a certain amount of generosity, in regards to giving. I give a percentage of my income to our local church and to other charitable organizations, and I think there's a certain amount of generosity. I think even with our time, I even invest some time in some guys that I see potential that I know can't afford me, and I elect to do that. I led a group of guys. There were 12 guys that met in my office for 6.5 years every Monday morning, but these were people I knew. I knew their sons. These were guys late 20s, early 30s. We called it the torch. And it was where I gave every week an hour of my time to instruct these guys. But they wanted it, and they showed that they were willing to come and participate. And I didn't charge those guys. It was kind of my ministry, if you will. And so we can elect to do those things, but you can't do it with a group of people that you don't know well.
Yeah. You have to be wise or strategic with what you're going to do for free. So, very good. My final question to wrap things up, I would love for people to know how to connect with you, where to find you, and do you have anything right now that you are promoting and want the listeners to know more about?
Yeah, thank you for saying that. There's a number of things that I'm doing. What I'd like to do more than that is to give away something, and I'm going to give something to your audience that can help maybe move the needle for them. In my coaching, I do what's called a personal assessment, and it's a 4-page document that I wrote that I take all my clients through. There's another document called What Do I Want? Stephanie, the truth is most people don't know how to articulate the lifestyle that they want. They just want bigger, better, faster, more, shinier, but they don't take the time to articulate. Robin and I have done this our entire marriage. We'll sit on the front porch periodically and we'll say, what are we willing to give up in order to obtain this? What are we willing to delay gratification for the greater good? What do we want to teach our children? How do we want to live? What do we want to invest in? We have a plan, and we've done that our whole marriage, and it's served us well. So I wrote a document called What Do I Want? It's about 30 questions that you ask yourself. You can do that alone. You can do it with your spouse, whatever what you'd like to do. And then people say, all right, I get it now. I know who I am. I know what I want, but I don't know what to do. So I've created another document called Steps to a Productive Day. And it walks you from the very beginning, from when you first get up, walks you through your entire day. It gives some methodology to your madness. And so I've created a landing page, viewfromthetop.com/moved by purpose, all in lowercase letters. And I put all these documents on that page for free. I don't want to charge you $1 for them. You go there, get them. Hopefully it'll propel you and be a catalyst to move your life forward.
Awesome. Thank you. That's very generous, Aaron. And I will have that link on the show notes as well for the listeners to make sure they click and check that out, because I think those are awesome tools and resources, and I really think that's very generous of you to give those to the audience and the listeners.
Now, if those guys want to contact me individually, it's viewfromthetop.com. My email address is there. Twitter, I'm on it a lot. It's VFT Coach, and I would love to connect with you there. Like I said, I coach people individually, one-on-one. And then I have Iron Sharpens Iron mastermind groups that I facilitate weekly. There's 3 different groups that you can participate in there. Here's the really cool thing, though. This is an awesome community that I've started where people come together, very, very nominal fee. I think it's like $37 a month. You can hear me every Wednesday on a live webinar. You can interact with questions. $37 a month is what I'm charging to do this. We have a community. It's a forum that people interact in. Nothing whatsoever against women, because women need this information, but my niche market is men. I coach men, the community's men, the Iron Sharpens Iron mastermind groups are men. Nothing whatsoever against women, but I've been involved with men's groups now for over 3 decades, and so I just feel like that's where God wants me to serve. So I would love to have you involved in the community, Iron Sharpens Iron, or one-on-one coaching.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. It was such an inspiration and an honor to hear your story and to have you featured on the Move by Purpose podcast. And I hope that you enjoy your day.
Thank you. It's been awesome. Thank you for having me on. I'm just saying there's a number of ways, but don't wait on people to contact you. Be proactive and not reactive in starting your group.